Hi, and welcome to the Unhinged History Podcast, the podcast where two friends are great friends. And they do this thing where they troll each other nonstop and they tell each other history stories they've only recently learned or uncovered new facts about, and then verbally assault their friend with that story. I'm host one, I'm Theresa, and that.
I'm host two. I'm never going to figure it out. I'm Angie, and I have something to say. First of all, if you're not trolling your best friend, are they even your best friend?
No, they're not. At least not the way I friend. Like, if I'm nice to
Honestly,
you, I either don't know
get
you or
away.
don't like you.
Uh, Dude, yeah, same, same. If I'm not trying to bug the crap out of you, we're not friends.
No.
Um, I am very uncomfortable with the fact that you just said stories we've either just learned or things about stories we've just uncovered, because that is what my story is about today. So what are
Well,
you
well,
talking about
well.
today?
I'm going to be telling the same story you tell, but I'm going to do different details because Ian's already shared it with
Oh.
me.
I know he hasn't. So neener, neener, neener. Good try though. I tried to ask him the other week if he wouldn't mind texting you and finding something out, and he was like, "No, I'm not getting in the middle of that." And I was like, "Well, you're lame. Like you'll do it for her, but you won't help me." And he's like, "Yeah, pretty much." Okay, cool.
Yeah, if she's not worried about it, it's not a threat.
Evidently, yeah. Okay. Rude. I guess I'll just start then.
Yeah, I mean,
Except
would
for
you
okay.
please?
Sorry, I didn't write down the author of my article's name. Uh, I am going to tell you part two of the opening of the Berlin Wall.
Oh,
hmm so this day last year, I told you about how the Berlin Wall was built, all of that. I'm going to give you a recap in just a minute, but I'm going to tell you about part two. Okay, so my source is a NPR article called "The Man Who Disobeyed His Boss and Opened the Berlin Wall." This is from November 16th of 2024 by Soria Nelson. And then my other is "The Fall of the Berlin Wall," an independent article written by Tody Patterson, November 9th of 2014. So, with that said, I'm just going to give you a little recap. When World War II ended in 1945, Germany was carved up into four occupation zones, right? Each one's overseen by one of the Allied powers. You have the US, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union, right? Now, Berlin, though, sits deep inside the Soviet-controlled territory, and it itself is also divided into four sections. And initially, people could move between East and West Berlin with relative ease. Like, you could live in one side and work in the other, and you really didn't have much of an issue, right? But by 1948, tensions are rising, things are sharpening, and the Soviets, angered by the West's economic reforms, they block all roads and railways into West Berlin. In response, the Allies launched the Berlin Airlift, where they fly in food, fuel, and hope, and this is like a symbolic stand against tyranny, and this totally works. But also deepens the divide. In response, the Allies launched the Berlin Airlift, where they're flying in food, fuel, and hope. It's this super symbolic stand against tyranny, and it works. But the other side to that is it also deepens the divide. By 1949, the two Germanys have formed. You have West Germany, that's backed by the Allies, and East Germany, which is under Soviet control. In 1961, the East German authorities, wow, that's a hard word for me to say. East German authorities build what they call the Anti-Fascist Protection Barrier. We know it as the Berlin Wall.
right.
Now, officially, it's meant to keep fascists out. In truth, it's built to keep people in. Now, behind the wall, I described this in last year's episode, but I'll give you a recap. Life continues, and sometimes competition takes surprising forms. You have East and West Berliners, and they begin what is called an animal arms race. Do you remember this? The
Yeah.
zoological
Oh, yeah.
garden
Yeah.
on
No,
one
I
side,
was already taking notes
right?
to attach this to the David Bowie
Okay,
Berlin Zoo competing
right.
zoo
So we
episode.
have competing zoos with competing animals that are submitted by their each allies from across the world. And then, of course, because you can't have a competing zoo on a Berlin Wall without espionage, we have espionage. In 1954, the CIA and and MI6 joined forces for what would be one of the boldest operations yet, called Operation Gold, where beneath the streets of Berlin, they build a 1,476-foot-long tunnel to tap Soviet phone lines. And for nearly a year, they gather priceless intelligence. Then the Soviets, quote unquote, discover the tunnel, but not by chance. They'd known about it all along, thanks to a British double agent by the name of George Blake. This doesn't really embarrass the West. If anything, the world marvels at the audacity of the plans. And it's kind of like this reminder that even underground, the Cold War is basically a contest of wit and nerve. And then comes the music. In the late 1970s, David Bowie had lived in West Berlin, sharing a small apartment with Iggy Pop, and it was here that he recorded the song Heroes. And then the album, which was very haunted by the Cold War isolation. Right? The title track Heroes talks about being heroes just for one day while they dream of freedom, blah blah blah, right? We remember all
Right.
that.
I mean, it was a
Now,
brilliant. I loved when you covered that.
that was actually still probably one of my favorite stories to tell you. A decade later, in 87, Bowie returns to Berlin for a concert that's staged right near the Reichstag, which is just yards from the wall itself. For all of those playing at home that didn't listen to this episode, his voice can the concert carry across from West Berlin into East Berlin, and you have East Berliners like gathering at the wall to listen to him sing his songs. They're divided by concrete, but totally united by the sound, and the East German police panic. They attack the young listeners with water cannons and arrests and all sorts of things. But it's too late, right? The music has done its work, and the moment exposes the cruelty and division, but it also changes how people, especially young East Berliners, see their government. A week later, Ronald Reagan stands at the Brandenburg Gate and demands Mr. Gorbachev tear the wall down. 2 years after that, the wall falls. In 2016, when David Bowie dies, Germany's foreign ministry writes, "Goodbye, David Bowie. You are now among heroes. Thank you for helping bring down the wall." Okay. So after I told you that story, I was reminded that I have some very sweet friends that were in Berlin when the wall fell. One was our former pastor. He was a young pastor at the time, young minister at the time, doing his ministry, and one was his young wife, who they hadn't. She was a teenager, but she is a West Berliner. So I called her and I was like, "Hey, would you mind sharing with me like your firsthand account of what it was like for Berlin and for your family when the Berlin Wall came down?" Because to me, I think we miss so much of history by not hearing the everyday story,
Right.
right? Like we hear these big grand stories, like all these great, women of World War II's espionage and all of their stories, but we don't hear what it was like for just mom and pop. So it's like, hey, what was your life for you? And she left me a really great voicemail detailing her experience. Basically, in her case, she believes that her family didn't suffer the same sort of separation that many other families of the time did that were torn apart by the wall. Rather, her grandmother had some foresight and she got as many of her children to the West as possible. Like she had like six or seven kids, but the older ones were older and like married. So she takes the children that she can with her to the West
Wow.
in like the 50s. My friend, her name is Allie. Her mom was born just after World War II and her father just before the war had ended, like a couple of months before. So by the time the wall is established, her family is already firmly established in the West. Okay, so like they're not separated by this whole fight to get back to my grandmother sort of thing. Grandmother's already there. There are some family members still residing in the East, though. One of her uncles, who she absolutely adores, had actually been raised in the West but fell in love with a girl from the East, so he moved there. Um, which she thought was totally wild. Like, why would you leave freedom for the Iron Curtain sort
Because
of thing,
love.
right?
Because love.
Because love, right. Now, she says she was still able to visit him often, like throughout the summer, she could go and stay with him for the duration of the summer. So she has like these really idyllic memories of her childhood being there. And visiting was allowed for family members under the right circumstances. Like, for example, that favorite uncle was allowed to come visit her family when her grandmother turned like 85 because by then he was old enough to be retired. So he wasn't considered like a flight risk, but his wife couldn't leave. So he would be forced to come back, right? So there's circumstances that keep you wanting to come home, but giving the opportunity for her to still go into East Berlin to visit him. Now, she makes a joke to him, August of 1989. She says, the next time you visit, the next time we get to visit, you're going to come see me, having no idea that we're just months away, right? She's 16. What is like, she's not paying attention to the news.
Right. Yeah. No, she's just some 16-year-old punk and just talking to her
Right.
uncle.
Like, right. And so she has no clue that she is like really speaking this sort of into existence. Now, of course, according to her, she is not paying attention to the news. She is aware of some things that are going on in the late 80s, though. She will admit to having not known the wall came down for like a couple of days because, again, we're 16, we're not paying attention to the news, but I definitely know something's going on. I'm just not sure what. Also, it's 1989. We don't have social media, so what do we know? Now, she told me some really interesting things at this point that I did not formally know. One is that obviously all along the border there are guard stations, right? They're obviously manned. The other thing that she points out is that Gorbachev knew keeping the wall up and maintained is incredibly expensive. East Germany has no money to contribute to this. And so Gorbachev basically really does nothing after Reagan tells him to tear down the wall. Like, he doesn't put out any official orders or anything like that of like what to do. So the wall is just kind of there, and they're kind of just doing what they've always been doing, but there's a lot of maybe tension is the right word in the air for some change, especially after the David Bowie concert, right? Now, because Gorbachev doesn't give out any particular orders, there is a lot of confusion and a lack of real orders for any of the guards along the wall to follow, which leads to this moment I didn't previously know about. On the night of November 9th, 1989, a Stasi guard by the name of Lieutenant Colonel Harold Jaeger opens the gates to his section of the wall. His section is called the Bromhillerstrasse crossing point, which basically separates the communist East Berlin neighborhood of Prenzlauer Berg from the free West Berlin area of Wedding. And I can't recall if I didn't make this clear in any of my previous episodes about this, which is weird that I have previous episodes, but free West Berlin is literally walled off like an island in East Germany. So the whole area is surrounded by this wall, right?
Yeah, that's
So,
kind of what I've been led to imagine. So,
right? So you can visualize how these neighborhoods, how you could have this free Western neighborhood lined up right against this communist blockade, right? Okay. So Um, I might have mentioned it actually in episode 46. You brought up by Potato King about the family that flies their hot air balloon
yeah, the Great Balloon
over.
Escape. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if I did or not, but I might have. Anyway, so the night of November 9th, 1989, Jaeger is in command of his station, but he has no real orders. Like, the other problem is there is no lack of people wanting to get across. In fact, by 11:30 that night, he's looking at over 20,000 East Berliners who are chanting "Open the gate." Now, there's a ton of confusion. He lacks clear orders. They basically tell him, "Do what you have to do, but like don't really say what they mean." He's looking around and he's got this ever-growing concern of a stampede or a bloodbath or both. So he makes the audible to open his gate. Now, what we need to know about Jaeger is that he is a career border guard. Like, he is fully behind this operation and fully believes in it. just like his father was well, like actually one of the first border guards in the East. So this is like a big deal for him. In fact, he helped build the wall in 1961. So like this plan to literally trigger the reunification of Germany is not what he's thinking of.
Right.
Like,
He is, this is what you do. You stand guard.
right. And so he's like, oh my God. But he opens the gates anyway, and as things are progressing further down the wall, other guards are seeing what happens. He does not see himself a hero that night. In fact, he tells the Independent, quote, after I gave the order, I and the other guards couldn't believe what we were seeing. We were shell-shocked. We felt the world was collapsing around us. He goes on to say, we stood there and watched our citizens leaving en masse. These were our people. We cried. We felt betrayed by our superiors. It was the terrible realization that not only did the system and our leaders had failed, we had too. He goes on
Wait, wait, wait,
to
wait, wait,
say
wait, wait,
that
wait, wait, wait. You're saying that the wall fell basically on accident and simultaneously multiple points of failure?
pretty much, like, they saw him open his gate, and I'll get to, just stick with me for a second because I'll get to what he says happens in just a moment. He basically goes on to say that about a half hour later, this vast group of East Berliners, they're clapping and cheering and crying these tears of joy as they pass through the gates. And then he realizes what he's done and like what's happened. And he says, quote, the crowds won us over with their euphoria. We realized that they were overjoyed, and our tears of frustration turned to those of joy. At that point, one of the guards came up to me and said, Harold, I guess this was it with East Germany, huh? And it suddenly dawned on me that it was. Now, this is what he says happened. So, what I just told you is like the brief overview of what the world saw. Jaeger, the guard, says earlier he is watching the news or some sort of news brief in the canteen when the East Berlin, I'm going to jack this word up, I'm going to try so hard, Politburo member says this is like the political representative of the East Berlin government. Gunther Schwabowski gives a murky and garbled statement to the East Germans that they can now travel west, providing they have the current documents from the authorities. But then, all of a sudden, Schwabowski says they can do so, quote, immediately and without delay. Now, what we need to know about him is he is totally buckling under pressure. Just 5 days before, there's a huge anti-communist demonstration in Berlin, as well as an exodus of East Germans across the now open Iron Curtain into Hungary's borders with Austria. So he is like, crap, the only way things are going to work out for me and my like administration or regime is if I lift the travel ban. This probably doesn't work out the way he plans. So Jaeger sees this news brief that I mentioned, then goes to his post to find all these curious East Berliners who are like, hey, can we like cross the border? What's going on? Right?
Right.
But he doesn't know. He just saw the same news brief and he's like, uh, let me call my boss. So mind you, as the hours progress, the number of East Berliners is also growing, and so is the agitation. You can
Oh,
imagine,
this
right?
makes sense. Yeah.
Right. So he calls his boss, the Stasi Colonel Rudy Ziegenhorn, who is like, don't bug me with this. They gotta have the right documents, and pretty much hangs up on him. And our guy's like, cool, okay. By 8 p.m., West German News, so the West German News now already has this statement from the East, and they're interpreting the statement saying that East Germany has opened its borders to the West. So, the Independent says, quote, by 9 p.m., the crowd had become so big that Mr. Jaeger was beginning to panic. We have to do something, he shouted down the phone. He was then ordered to defuse the situation by letting the noisiest East Germans leave the crossing point for West Berlin. The aim was to make it impossible for them to return by rendering their passports invalid with a special stamp. I realized then that I was doing something which was illegal even in East Germany, he said. The tactic soon backfired. The crowd, seeing that the noisy were allowed in the West, started to get noisier. I mean, shocking. The other guards along the wall, they know they're armed, but they're seeing their command like lose control big time and beg Jaeger to take some sort of action because they're fearing also the bloodbath should they try to do anything. And this basically leaves Jaeger with one option. At 11:30 that night, he orders to open the barrier. The Independent said, quote, "The human tide flowed west until dawn." So that's a lot of hours of people just walking across the border.
Yeah. No, that honestly feels like it
Oh, like
feels
a
like
lot?
300 when he's talking about how his army is going to march for
Yeah,
miles and
that's
miles and miles.
that's exactly. I didn't see him in that costume, but yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. He calls his sister when his shift's over and he tells her what he did. Her response, "You did well." So that's how the Berlin Wall fell on November 9th.
Holy cow.
I know. Thanks, David Bowie.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's going to be a hard pivot from where I'm going. Um,
You're welcome. I just loved that there was not one single action that, like, to me, it's so fascinating to see the hair trigger moments that cause these major historical events. And
I
his
mean,
was just that my boss couldn't tell me what to do.
yeah, my boss was just overwhelmed watching his show and just didn't want to deal with having to wait for a rerun,
Yeah,
which is what it
like I
feels
can't
like.
pause. Like I can't pause what's going on here. Can you just wait till my episode's over and then I'll figure it out?
Yeah, so the Berlin Wall failed basically because middle management can't middle manage.
Pretty much, but like simultaneously, I personally, and this is just my personal opinion, Gorbachev probably wanted it to. And so he didn't put out any specific orders, neither did the rest of his administration. So really, what's anybody gonna do?
I mean, I don't see that you're wrong.
I feel like it's the cheapest way to get the ball down because either way, you're gonna have to pay. If you did intend to take the wall down, you're gonna have to pay to remove it. But if you let the citizens do it, it's done.
You know, did you ever hear the story? I think it was somewhere in I want to say Eastern Europe where this municipal government needed to build a dam. They had spent years designing it, allocating funds for it, and then as they went to go break ground, they realized a family of beavers had gone in, built the dam better than they could have, and did it for free.
No,
But
no,
this
but
is
I
kind
love
of what
that.
that feels like.
I mean, yeah, pretty much because we've seen the photos. We watched them take the rocks, like the concrete bricks, right out of the wall.
Yeah.
Like,
And they became mementos.
right. The other thing that I didn't mention earlier that she said that really sparked my imagination is she said on her side of the wall, like that her home, my friend Allie, her home was just like a few blocks from the wall, I guess, and her side was all graffitied. The other side of the wall in the same spot still had the feet and feet and feet of sand for the death zone.
Wow.
And that's such a wild thing to like even comprehend, I guess, today in my mind, right? But like that was just life. She's like, yeah, our side was graffiti, their side was like spotless because,
Nobody's allowed to get near it.
right. I was like, oh, that's nuts. So yeah, good
Okay.
luck with your pivot.
Yeah, mine's gonna be a wild pivot. I decided to honor the Indigenous history, and so I am going to tell you the story of Lozen.
Okay.
That means you don't know
Off
who
the
she
top of my
is.
head,
I'm here
I
for it.
don't think I do.
My sources reviewed work Women of the Apache Nation, Voices of Truth by H. Henrietta Stockel. Review by Junella Hayes, American Indian Quarterly, Volume 18, Number 4, Autumn of 1994. Uh, Women and the American Story, Life Story, Lozen, circa 1840 to 1889. History.com, The Apache Woman Warrior Who Helped Lead Resistance to European Invaders by Tony Takuran Aiki Williams. Lozen, she's born in 1840 to the Chihani Apache Band near Ojo Caliente in New Mexico.
Oh, okay, that's already fun.
I mean, it means hot eye, which, for those of you
Yeah,
like me who use Google Translate to get through anything with Spanish other than ordering your tacos. Um,
you speak
now,
menu.
yeah, I speak menu. I can order a beer.
Thank
Now,
you so much.
at the time, there's at least seven Apache bands. There's numerous clans that are spread throughout the vast area, and this is known as Apacheria. And that's now in northern Mexico, eastern Arizona, and then southwestern New Mexico. So, really, the Great American Southwest.
Okay.
Now, her band is also known as the Red Paint People, and they're recognized by red bands of clay worn across their faces during ceremony. Now you can picture them. It has been in pop culture. We have seen them in movies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this group is led by her father. They're known for raiding. And Apache bands, they tend to war with one another and they tend to always be on the move. So a very nomadic lifestyle.
Oh my gosh, so you're telling the story of the American Mongolians.
Yeah, basically. Now,
Okay, I'm here for it.
um, Joey Padilla, he's a medicine man and a museum curator at the Mescalero Apache Reservation in New Mexico. He goes on to say that they never stayed in one place. So
Okay.
nomadic, nomadic, nomadic. And then we get our main character here, Lozen. Lozen, her name means dexterous horse thief.
Love that for her.
Yep. And this really reflects the skill that she acquired that enabled her to sneak behind enemy lines undetected, round up horses and steal them away. Now, her stealth and courage, these are going to become the qualities that she's known by, and she's going to basically be in constant conflict.
Okay.
So,
I can see
foreshadowing.
this. Yeah.
When she's 7 years old, she learns how to ride horses. And
So
it's
I learned
at
how to walk and then I learned how to ride.
basically now her parents realize that she's extremely talented as a horseback rider. And even though she's a child, she's one of the best riders in the band.
Okay. Like this?
Now, the Apache apparently they've got some fairly strict gender roles. The men are warriors and the women gathered, prepared food, and performed household tasks. When enemies attacked, it appears that women were responsible for collecting the most important items of the household and then running to safety. Because of this, Apache women are in great physical shape.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah, because we are, and that's why we're always on the move.
Yep. Now, Apache girls, they tend to start intense physical training around age 8. So this feels very Sparta Agoge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, every morning, they woke before sunrise and ran to the top of a nearby mountain.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, no, thank you.
Now, they are a matriarchal culture with a deity called the White Painted Woman at the center of the creation story. And Lozen understood from a very young age that women play a very important role.
As you
So
do.
all of this is spinning up, right? When
Mm-hmm.
she's a child, there's an ambush of her people by Mexicans. And the Mexican men, they lured the Apache band with promises of gifts, and then they start to shoot at him. Lozen and her brother Victorio escape, but many Apache men, women, and children died. And Lozen never forgets this.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
Now, she grows up as a typical Apache girl. She's learning how to prepare food, sewing. She's completing basically all the tasks that you would need to learn to be a successful wife and mom. Now, her path changes during her coming of age ceremony. And this ceremony marked a girl's first period and celebrated her entrance into womanhood.
Okay, yeah, this
It,
makes sense.
it's during this time she receives a spiritual calling during the ceremony, and that gave her, this is crazy, a power to sense the location of their enemies.
Oh, okay, okay.
You know who I'm
Keep
talking
keep
about
going.
now.
I think so. Yeah. I don't
Now,
think I know much, but I'm it's ringing bells.
this indicated that she's basically on the wrong path. Wife and mom is not her. She needs to become a warrior.
Get it? Get it, Mama? Get it?
So her brother Victorio, he becomes the new leader of the band. And Lozen joins the men on raids, and she's quickly gaining respect from all of the other male warriors. She eventually becomes her brother's trusted partner. And she's got some incredible talents as a hunter and horseback rider. And then this ability that she has to locate enemies made her a highly respected warrior.
Yeah.
And she never marries or has kids.
Oh wow.
Now,
Okay.
I don't know if I put it in my notes, but I one of the things they said that she would do is she would hold her arms up and oh, you know, I have it in the next line. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Okay. 1848.
Okay, carry on.
New Mexico became a territory in the U.S. under the Treaty of Hidalgo. And then we have the California Gold Rush that's kicking off. And this is bringing tons of miners through Apache. And when Lozen's 12, she goes through these puberty rites. So she's still a wee one, right? And basically, we're zooming back and kind of going more into those special power bits. She's 12. She goes alone into the mountains. And according to oral history, she gains this ability to track down her enemies. Now, Harlan Geronimo, the great grandson of Geronimo that you know of, he said that Lozen would lift her hands and walk in a circle until the veins in her arms turned dark blue, indicating the direction from which her enemies would approach.
How the heck do you decide you know that that's what it's doing?
Look, I don't know. I wasn't there to A/B test this,
Okay. I'm here
but
for it though. Let's
I
go.
mean, hot diggity damn. Could you imagine
Yeah.
some preteen coming down going, my arm is blue. We're going that way. I was
Yep.
playing
Well, now
hide and
that you
go
say it
seek.
like
I threw
that,
my arms up, and that arm's blue. So Victorio is that way.
and I'm never wrong.
I mean, that's kind of how it sounds, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
So, mind you, 12, she begins fighting Mexican soldiers, scalping hunters, and the eternal enemies of her band. Now, 1849, the Americans arrive and they start laying claim to her homeland, and she battles with them as well. In the
Okay.
in the book Warrior Woman, the story of Lozen, Apache warrior, and shaman, Peter Alsher really goes through and really defines this. Her brother Victorio, he says that Lozen is my right hand. She is as strong as a man, braver than most, and cunning in strategy. She is the shield to her people.
Oh, I love you, Victoria.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
Mm.
then Padilla, the curator of the museum, he said that she was a warrior woman in her time and that the Apaches always had women with them. And she stood right behind the man with a knife or gun. And if the man went down, you had to deal with the women too. Women also hid children from the enemies.
Yes.
So you just get this very strong, cohesive community that knows
Mm-hmm.
how to lock arms and go to war. After the Mexican-American War ends in 1848, the lands in Southwest become a part of the United States, and then we get more white people coming in and settling. And the government wants to grant even more land to white citizens.
Shocking.
And this is when the U.S. forces the Apache groups into reservations.
They hate that.
Yeah, this isn't exactly what they want to do. Now, we have in 1861 the Chicoan. Oof. We have a chief who's falsely accused of kidnapping a rancher's son. I don't want to butcher it much more than I just did. Um,
Okay.
and this sparks a series of conflicts that embroils the U.S. and various Apache nations in conflicts for a measly 24 years.
Just a small couple decades.
Yep. 1862, the chief Cosais and another chief, they go to battle at the Apache Pass. They bring 200 warriors with them, but they get pushed into a retreat and then scattered by howitzer cannons because we've got more firepower.
This chicks.
Now, Lozen, she's at the Apache Pass and she's welcomed into the council as a warrior, and she fought for years next to her brother Victorio as they struggle for their homeland. And then she's likely involved in a horse raid at Fort Craig. And this is where Apaches are armed with bows and arrows, and they are taking horses from the soldiers.
Okay.
1869, she joined Victorio and other Apache leaders for a meeting to establish a reservation at Ojo Caliente. But instead, they're moved to harsher conditions on the San Carlos Reservation in Arizona.
Mm.
So, bait and switch. Now, 1870, the Warm Spring Apaches, they agreed to move to Ojo Caliente. However, the government reneges. They go back on their agreement and they force all of the
What?
Apaches. Surprise, surprise. I bet you didn't see
I
that coming.
shook.
Um, they force all Apache to go to San Carlos Reservation in 75. And then San Carlos is pretty far away from Ojo Caliente, and the conditions, garbage, absolutely deplorable. The Apache members, they're struggling with hunger and disease, and the government forced members from various Apache groups to live together on the reservation.
I see
Just,
this going so well.
yeah, I mean, look, we've done it before and it failed that time, so maybe it'll
Let's
work
try
this
again.
time. Yeah, if at first you don't succeed.
Try again.
Now, Lozen, Victorio, and some others from their band, they flee. They're like, San Carlos, deuces, we're out of here. They eventually decide that it's war over return,
Fair?
which I feel is a cooler phrase than death before dishonor.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, they end up disbanding to evade capture, and Lozen later escaped, or la la la. Lozen later escorted a group of women and children to Mexico. They end up crossing the raging Rio Grande, and there's a dude named James Kawekala. He's a child at the time. He remembered riding behind his grandmother as this band fled American forces. Coekla, he says that he saw a magnificent woman on a beautiful horse holding a rifle over her head. And after the group reached Mexico, they were cold, wet, but alive. And then Lozen rides back across the Rio Grande and she returns right back to the fight.
I love her.
I mean, she can't stop, won't stop. Now, many who escape are caught or killed by the US military. And then we get those, like the group that Lozen led, they make it to Mexico. Victorio, he decides to lead his group back to Ojo Caliente and he tries to pressure the government to honor their initial agreement to let them live there. And when they returned to the Ojo Caliente reservation, they find that the military had just shut it down. Just, bye, you don't live here no
Bye.
more.
Yeah, this checks.
We already forwarded your mail. So back,
UPS will deliver.
yeah, if it fits, it ships. There we go.
That's right. If it's it ships.
So back at San Carlos, the government arrested the leaders of that band, including Geronimo. Now,
The great great grandson.
the original Geronimo, the Geronimo that you would know from the Indian fighting.
Oh, okay. I misplaced my time frame then. I was thinking that she was in the same time frame as the grandson.
No, no, no. She is with the historic Geronimo.
Gotcha. Okay. That's awesome.
Okay, so they go when the Warm Spring Apaches heard the rumors that there were plans to also arrest Victorio, they flee to the mountains. They're like deuces. And
Peace.
they attack a small group of American soldiers, and then this starts a war between their band and the US military.
Shocking.
Right. I mean, it's basically just guns a-blazing over here. Now, Lozen's group, they're on the lam. And when they're under attack, women and children that are traveled in small groups are separate from the warriors because they're trying to downplay casualties. During one attack, a group of women and children had to cross a river to escape American soldiers. The water's rising, and this makes the crossing it safely very difficult. Lozen had left the group of warriors to help them to just get past the river. Now,
Okay.
1880, she goes on to continue being her badass self because The Warm Spring Apaches, they're on their way to Mexico through Texas. And one of the women in their group is pregnant. She starts going into labor. The American soldiers are like right on their heels. So Lozen left the group to help the woman give birth.
Okay.
And they're separated from the group, and that alone is dangerous. And a birthing woman is not typically quiet.
Yeah.
Now,
I'm gonna need you to shush.
yeah, royal women don't cry out in pain.
We know this, honey. We talked about this.
Yeah. Now, Lozen, she had to leave her horse behind to avoid being noticed by the military. Now, there's two women and a new baby, and new mom isn't necessarily in any move to like walk. Like this is not what her body's
Uh,
designed for at the moment.
Neither
So,
is horse riding, if we're being honest.
look, you got to do what you got to do, Like your vulva may be the size of a grapefruit, but there are things that have to occur at this point.
I'm just thinking of our lioness of Brittany, who's like, "Oh, you're in my house. I just gave birth. Do go."
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Now, Lozen also realizes that they have no food or water.
Oh,
So
okay,
to
that could
say
be
they're in the
good.
hurt locker is a bit of an understatement.
Just a bit.
Now,
Yeah.
she notices that there's a Mexican camp and she's like, you know what? I'm just going to steal one of their horses. If she waits till the men are asleep, she uses her super good skill and her dexterity at stealing horses and skirts across the river, takes the horse, evades bullets from the guard, and makes it safely back to the woman and her child. And the three of them flee together.
Okay.
Now, Lozen tries to reunite with the main group, and then she discovered that the American soldiers are guarding every water source on the route, which makes sense. Super smart. You're in the desert, they're going to come to water. Do what you got to do.
Yeah, okay, I hate that.
Now, she's able to find her way back, taking this very long and dangerous route, but this takes weeks. And it's this
Mm-hmm.
long herring event that exemplifies how Lozen blurred these gender lines because she's the skilled warrior who's able to steal a horse and evade capture, but she's also trained in family care. So she is helping deliver a baby and then take care of it
Right.
postpartum.
I was gonna ask that when you said she left the group to care for the baby, 'cause so I'm assuming that while she is a warrior and while she is clearly a commander in the forces, right? Like her first duty as female is to protect the females and the children.
Right. And like there's a documentary I saw about her years ago. I didn't put it in here because I couldn't remember where it was, but it was something along the lines of she realized as a healer, as a midwife, that bringing life into the world is more sacred than taking life out.
Yeah, would agree.
And so she made that choice to leave the warriors when they needed her the most because there was a duty that was greater than that.
Yeah, okay. I like
Now,
this.
um, she ends up getting back to the main group at the Mescalero Reservation, and that's when she learned that Mexican troops had ambushed the Apaches. Around 80 members of her band were killed, including her brother Victorio.
So is
She,
she the leader now?
no, but she
Oh,
left her brother knowing she had this special skill that would allow her to detect her enemy. And because she wasn't there, because she was ushering in life, he died.
oh, yeah, okay. I
So
didn't think of that.
she's devastated.
Yeah, fair.
And she ends up leaving mom and new baby in Mescalero, and she goes to look for other members of her band. And eventually, she rejoined the survivors of that band at the Sierra Madre Mountains.
Okay.
And then it's now 1880. After her brother's death, she joins the new chief, Nana, and they eventually join Geronimo's forces and rode with him to the end.
You know what I'm thinking? This is so dumb. I'm thinking this the entire time. She did all of this without Google Maps telling her where to go.
I mean, look, you're not wrong.
I'm like, I can make it from Manteca home. I can make it from San Jose home. That's it.
right?
I get confused with some of the neighborhoods in my own town where I was raised.
But you know what? That's the thing. There's other things we can do because of the technology we're used to that they could never, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true. Our ancestors rode horses and traveled by night stars so we could have Google Maps.
Yeah, they also took so much longer at getting everything done. These are things.
There's also that.
So, okay, the Apaches that remained at San Carlos, they flee under the leadership of Geronimo in 1885. Lozen, she buddies up with Geronimo and uses her power to evade capture by the Americans and Mexican soldiers because now it's two nations against this Indian nation.
Right.
Now we get Lozen and Dateste. She's another female warrior. They enter into peace negotiations with the Americans. However,
Okay.
as a surprise to nobody, the Americans aren't taking the negotiations seriously. And they're like, you know what? We're just going to take y'all and relocate you to Florida because same, same.
That checks. Yeah, cool. We've been living in the American South for, I don't know, the entirety of our existence, but Florida sounds great.
Yeah. Alligators make a lot of sense to what we're used to dealing with.
Yeah. Let's go.
Now, Lozen and the other leaders decided to surrender and join the forced relocation of Florida. They kind of are just resolute to this fate. It's in Florida that she contracts tuberculosis.
Mm.
And
Okay. Put that on your bingo card.
yeah, I mean, yeah, basically, it was either that or syphilis. But um, Geronimo, like Lozen, surrenders to the U.S. government, and they imprison Lozen at her Mount Vernon barracks in Alabama. So from Florida, and then they ship her back up to Alabama. And she
Okay.
dies there June 17th, 1889, and is buried in an unmarked grave. Now,
Really?
in an interview, an old Apache, Charlie Smith, described her as, to us, she was a holy woman, and she was regarded and treated as such. White painted woman herself was not more respected.
I was wondering when you said that the young person saw her crossing the river with her arms up in the rifle. I was like, she's their white painted woman.
Yeah, but
Huh.
that is the story of the Apache woman warrior, Lozen.
I love her. I'm sad it was tuberculosis.
None of us make it out alive, Angie.
I know. I just wanted a blazing glory for her. I feel like that's what she probably would have been aiming for.
I mean, to be fair, I think the moment she paused to usher life into the world rather than ushering life out,
Yeah.
I think, she just wanted the best for her family and the
Yeah, at the end of the
community.
day, yeah. I would agree with you on that. Wow, that was a wildly different story.
I feel like that's what you can expect from me, though. No matter what like, apparently the Berlin Wall is your Rome.
It is, and it's the weirdest of my roams because it's the least expected one, I think.
Yeah, it is
But I think
actually.
right? I think though it's fascinating to me because it happened in our lifetime. Like we were too young to remember it, right? But like we can watch the news about it. Like I watched a portion of the YouTube from the East German official when he muffed the punt and told everybody they could go west. It was in German, so I didn't understand any of it, but like we have access to that sort of footage, I guess. Yeah, it is definitely the weirdest of my roams. I'm gonna go
So,
ask Ian, and he's gonna tell you something very different, though.
on what your Rome is.
Yeah, I'm now curious to say hear what he would think.
If you've got your own Roman Empire and you want to know if we talk about it, write in. It's unhinged.historypod@gmail.com. Give us something to talk about. If you really want to do something cool, rate, review, subscribe, do those things. They really help us out. They allow other humans just like you to find their tribe. And on that note, Share this with your favorite person who would probably inadvertently tear down a Berlin Wall.
Or raise their arm and wait for the vessels to turn blue.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And on
Yeah.
that note, goodbye.
Bye.